Hello, my fellow confectionaries. It's going to be February when I post this, and so for this February we're going to play Our Life, Beginnings and Always. I've played this game a lot and I really like it, so I got permission to do a let's play of it. This is probably going to end up being longer than most of my other playthroughs, just because there's probably not going to be a lot of editing, and since I only post like 4 or 5 times a month, yeah. So, we need to make our character here, and I have a name. Going to name her Claire. Swedish. There, Claire Swedish. What a lovely name. So now, we need to figure out what she's gonna look like. Well, I kinda like the black, but I also kinda like the brown. How about this? We're gonna go with this. Now, birthmark scars. Ooh, should we give her glasses? I kinda like that. It's kinda cute. Oh, we'll go with that. I personally like pants and shirts. Bracelets and watches. Yeah, we'll go with that. Ta-da! Alright, I think we're done. Claire. Summer in Sunset Bird was a special time of year. Your usual sleepy town began to bustle. It was a popular tourist destination, with people coming from all over to enjoy the beach, the weather, and the relaxation that came with both. The smell of the ocean, crisp and salty, hung in the air, bringing 3 whole months of schoolless vacation with it. During the summer, your moms didn't like you to wander too far outside of your neighborhood, so you knew the area pretty well. That included the people. Families came and went from Sunset Bird, but they mostly stayed and did what your mom called putting down roots. They built businesses, they got to know each other, and they definitely said hello to the nice young kids who waved when passing their stores. Going for a walk around town mostly meant that the familiar, friendly residents waved or asked how your family was, or most often just said hello. You ended up saying hi to a lot of different people, since most of the tourists that came and went every summer were the same ones. You enjoyed learning all about where they were visiting from and hoped to visit those places one day too. But today, there was a man sitting on the curb outside your house. He was sitting with his head in his hands, his whole body slumped over, and you wondered if he was even a real person, or a statue that had magically sprung up from the ground overnight. Whoever or whatever he was, you had never seen him before. One thing about knowing everyone in Sunset Bird was that people who you didn't recognize really, really stood out. It was rare for tourists to venture into the residential district, as your moms called it. So, for you, not knowing who a total stranger was set off a lot of red flags. Your moms had talked with you and your big sister Lizzie about this kind of situation before. They mentioned that some people aren't good to talk to, but other types of people can help you even if you don't know them. You remember that it's okay to run away if you feel uncomfortable. You don't have to worry about being polite then. You weren't sure about this man yet. Still, you felt a bit scared knowing that he was blocking the way to your front door. You slowed down, your mind racing for ideas on how to get past him unseen, but it was too late to escape. There was a split second where your eyes met and you took in a shaky breath, your eyes darting to the sky, pretending to stare at a bird who was hovering nearby. Hey! His voice startled you and made you jump, but still, you didn't look at him. The bird landed on top of a nearby gatepost and its black feathers ruffled against the gentle breeze. Trying to keep your eyes on it was tough, especially when the man stood up and started to make his way toward you. Still unsure about him, but willing to be friendly, you offered this stranger a smile. The man gives a grin of his own back. Do you live around here? What's your name? You look the man up and down, taking in his tan skin and relaxed appearance. At least his clothes were relaxed. The way he was acting wasn't. He had sharks on his shorts and a stingray tattoo, and you wondered if he was obsessed with the ocean or something. While you made your assessment, he looked at you expectantly, waiting for an answer to his question. Yeah, I live here. That's great! He looked happy to hear it, giving you a broad smile. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a clean $20 bill. It crinkled in his hand as he held it up to you. Even more confused than before, you looked back at him.
Well...
Could you do me a favor? Nothing bad. Sorry. I should have... Let me start over. He cleared his throat and stood up straighter. From where you were standing, it just made him look creepier. I have a son. His name is Cove, who's about your age. Cove? You chewed on the inside of your cheek. This guy was definitely obsessed with water. He wasn't the only person like that in Sunset Bird. We moved in across the street, see? He gestured toward the house that had been empty for a year, his watch catching the light afternoon sunlight and reflecting off the walls. The gigantic for sale sign was finally gone. You must be Eclair Sweet Dish. I did not put two E's, but okay. You must be Eclair Sweet Dish, right? I met your moms earlier, and they told me you were 8, just like him. So he shook the $20 bill by bringing it back. Excuse me. He shook the $20 bill to bring it back to your attention, a hopeful smile tilting his lips at the corners. Can you try to be friends with the boy? Just give it a chance, and you can keep this. He's a good kid. You'll like him.
Do you mind?
But you've got to keep it a secret too, okay? It wouldn't be friendly to say his dad sent you. You kind of felt sorry for Cove. This definitely wasn't the normal way kids made friends. You knew that. What do you say? Want to make a deal? Should I run away? You didn't want the money. No, thank you. Sorry. He deflated enough to notice, but not completely. Are you sure? It won't be so bad, even if it's just for the summer. That'd be enough. That only made this sound more strange to you. Why does it lasting for the summer matter? When it was clear his initial strategy wasn't going to fly, he took the bill into a back pocket and changed the request. I get it. You don't have to. Would you be more comfortable with he and I coming by for a normal visit? No money involved. You'd have to ask my moms. His smile got bigger again. His eyes crinkled at the sides. Of course, they invited us over earlier, but I'd like to ask you too. Then I guess you can. I'll bring him by tomorrow. I wanted him to meet and greet with the neighbors today, but, well, I don't know where he's gotten off to. He laughed when he said that, but with the way his face looked, you thought he actually wanted to cry. If you see him, can you tell him to come on home? He's got a pink cast and glasses. You can't miss it. Okay. This definitely wasn't the normal way kids made friends. You knew that, but you were still going to help. The man smiled and reached out to pat you on the head, paused before doing so, then pulled his hand away instead. Your moms are already checking around for me. Such a thoughtful group you are. Now I better go look too. Can't put everyone else to work while I keep sitting here. I thought he might come back, and that's not what's important. I have to go. Thanks again, Eclair. So much. He jogged off down the street without another word. You decided to check the hills behind your house. The chirping of crickets in the tall grass greeted you, quiet and familiar. From the top of the hill you could see the ocean. As you walked, you listened to the crash of the waves on the shore and the seagulls squawking as they settled down for the night. You love to hear stories about the sea, about the merfolk and the sea serpents you imagined living far beneath the waves. Sometimes you could almost convince yourself you had seen the flash of a shiny mermaid's tail in the distance. When you took in a deep breath. You wanted to try to relax and couldn't. You weren't sure what, but something told you that you weren't alone, so you glanced around. There was a boy, sitting at the top of one hill, almost completely hidden within the long grass and white flowers surrounding him. His head was buried in his knees, staring ahead by himself. For whatever reason, probably just that he wasn't paying attention, he hadn't noticed you yet. You watched him a minute longer, feeling a little bit like you'd found a deer in the wild. Though deer didn't have... Oh, no. Sad frowns. But this new boy did. You wondered what could have upset him. After a few more seconds, he took a step forward, then another, and then he glanced your way. His aquamarine eyes reflected the light of the moon. You stopped, raising a hand to acknowledge him and show you weren't scary. Hi. With a start, he jumped to his feet, his hands balling into fists at his sides. He didn't say anything, just stared at you in a strange way. He'd been crying. There were traces of tears on his cheeks and his knees, soaking the hem of his shorts, and his eyes were still shining with a few more. You'd obviously caught him off guard. His pink cast seemed to glow in the twilight, though when he caught you staring at it, he hid his arm behind his back. Something the man earlier had said stuck out to you. Cove? Eyes wide, he studied you. How do you know that? I met your dad.
Oh.
I met your dad.
Oh.
So, is this your hill? He gestured with his uninjured arm to the patch of grass surrounding you, his face falling at the prospect. I can leave if it is. You shook your head. While doing so, you also picked up the strand of lint on your leg. What a weird question to ask someone. Oh. He sat back down with a thump, resting his chin on his knees again. Curious about the strange new boy with the odd dad, you sat on the patch of grass next to him. The pure white flowers that covered this hill rocked back and forth gently as the stars twinkled above. The way they dotted the sky made them seem like flowers too. The night wind was cool as it traveled over the ocean and up the hill, chasing away the heat from the afternoon sun. Why are you here? A quiet hiccup escaped Cove as soon as you asked the question. Almost like they'd never stopped, his tears started up again with a vengeance. My parents. They don't want to live together with me anymore. The tears fell fast and heavy over his flushed cheeks, sticking in his dark lashes. My mom made my dad leave, and he took me with him, and now we have a house here, and I want to go home. The outburst took you off guard. By the time he was done wailing, Cove's chest was heaving with exhaustion. He sniffled and removed his glasses, wiping at his eyes with the back of his hand before he put them back on again. I hate this place. I want my real life back. I want my mom. I'm sorry. He slipped his hands underneath his glasses and pressed his fingers against his eyelids. Cove wound himself up again for another long crying fit. He felt bad for being forced to come here with no choice. He couldn't imagine what it would feel like to live with only one of your moms, but it must be pretty hard. But from way off in the distance, you heard your parents. Eclair!
Cove?
Kids, where did you go? Cove looked at you, tears still clinging to his cheeks. Don't tell them we're here.
I want to go home.
I don't want to go back to that house. I want to go home. Sorry, I have to. Stretching as you stood, you tilted your head back down to look at Cove. I can't lie to my moms about where you are, you know. And they're gonna tell him. Slowly, Cove stood up with you, still looking a little reluctant. His dad's voice rang out again. Cove, can you hear me? He looked toward the sound of his dad's voice, silent, then turned away while rubbing his not bandaged arm.
Sorry.
I still don't want to go. You called out yourself. Wanting to go home, you raised your own voice. Over here! Cove's face soured. He said nothing, but his thoughts were probably pretty nasty at that moment. The trio of parents appeared over the curve of the hill. Instantly, all their eyes landed on you, and they rushed over. Both of your moms were at your side in a split second, faces filled with worry. Eclair, you're here after all. We had been at the park to check for Cove, and then heard what happened earlier when you met the new neighbor. I thought you might have gone off further away. No. Cove didn't want to go home just yet. Mommy gave Cove a small smile, and then she turned back to you. Thank goodness, you're both fine. Were you two having fun out there? You looked over at Cove, who was wiggling against his dad's tight hug and pushing at his arms. You didn't think that was the right word to describe it, but weren't sure what else to say to your moms. Finally letting go of his squirming, scowling son, Cove's dad turned to the three of you.
That's a relief.
Thanks very much for finding him. I really don't know this neighborhood. Good thing Eclair knows this whole area so well. Absolutely. We should be getting home now. It's been a long day for us all. Say goodbye, Cove.
Bye.
And the two of them walked off into the darkness. Heading toward the neighborhood, he watched Cove's bright pink cast until it disappeared. Tell you what, we'll have a proper play date tomorrow, okay? Your new friend's dad wanted to bring him by to see you and Lizzie. How does that sound? You nodded, ducking your head down. Both of your moms laughed, the sounds overlapping into a warm, familiar chorus. Mommy put her arm around your shoulder and led you towards the path. Satisfied and more than a little ready to go to bed after your long, exciting day, you followed them home. Choose your feelings for Cove. This is how you feel towards Cove for this step. It can change in later steps. I'm gonna go with nervous indifference for this one. We'll be able to change it again in step 2. Early the next morning, you were poking at your food, eating it slowly. Your sister Lizzie had run out earlier to go play, but you'd stayed put. Today, just like your moms had promised, Cove was coming over to hang out. Excited to see your new friend again, Eclair? I guess.
Okay.
With that said, are you done with your breakfast? Your bowl was entirely empty, so you nodded. Good job. You should be here soon. Cleanup began, and then, on cue, there was a knock. It was hesitant, like the person wasn't sure they were in the right place. Still, loud though. We need to get a more obvious doorbell. I know. Hey Claire, could you get it? Because Mom said so, you wandered over to the door. Hey, Swedish family. Thanks for having us. Mr. Holden, as your moms had called him, and his son were here. Cove looked different in the bright light of your living room and when he wasn't crying. With his dad standing in front of him and Mom and Mommy behind you, you and Cove looked at each other. You studied Cove apathetically. This was the parents' plan, not yours. Not seeming any more excited than you were, he just stared back. Oh, this is new. This wasn't here last time. You twisted the shell bracelet on your wrist. Do you want to go play in your room, Claire? Sure. So, my room is this way.
Okay. Take care.
Let us know if you need anything, you two. Have fun, kids.
See you.
See you later, son. Play nice. You led him to your room, puffing out your chest a little bit at the sight of your treasures. There were lots of stuffed animals, a cool bed, a window to look out. It was a great room. You hadn't had anyone to show it to in a while, but you were really proud of it. He leaned in a little closer to one of your drawings on the wall. I like this. Thank you. You're welcome. You smiled at him. You were proud of that particular piece of art, and you were glad he noticed it. He turned to look around the room a little more, studying the books on your desk and the pictures on the walls. You started to feel a bit nervous. You wanted to say something but didn't know what, so you let him keep looking. Then his eyes landed on a teeny box of beach things he'd collected tucked away by your door. He took a step towards it before hesitating and pointing at it instead. What's that? A hoard of stuff I found on the beach.
Oh.
Do you have any driftwood in there? Dragging the box into the middle of the room, you and Cove flopped down next to it. Yeah. You gestured to a piece at the bottom, still covered with specks of sand.
Neat.
This is a good collection. You got the sense from the tone of his voice that he wasn't just saying it to be nice, or to be like Shiloh. He actually meant it. Oh, Shiloh is coming over. Shiloh? My sister's friend. He wants to, meet you. Do I have to see him? It'll be okay, I think. Here, I found this shell in a log, and you pulled out seashell after seashell, explaining where you'd gotten each one and holding them up against the light. There were big ones, small ones, pink, purple, and orange. Most of them you washed off in the bathroom sink when you brought them home, cleaning off the sand. Your voice faltered a little bit, but you kept going on as best as you could. You were really proud of your shell collection, and it made you happy that Cove was interested in it too. Apparently fascinated either by the stories or by the shells themselves, Cove listened with what looked like a full force of his attention. It was a new experience to be the center of such dedicated focus, even if it was only directed at the shells. Kids, come down to the living room. You could tell this idea was making him unhappy, but Mommy wasn't giving you much of a chance to hang around. Cove hadn't been like this meeting you. You guessed it was because he thinks you found each other by accident, not that a parent made it happen. Mr. Holden must be right that telling Cove his dad was part of that would be a bad idea. Before you knew it, you'd both been escorted downstairs and deposited in the living room, ready for Shiloh's visit. The two of you sat side by side on the floor of your home's entryway. I brought the box of shells. I want to keep looking at them. Okay, but be careful. I will. You weren't sure if you could trust someone else with your treasures yet, so you stayed next to him while he opened the lid and peered inside. Cove reached in and pulled out a big orange shell. Oh. Like he hadn't spoken aloud yet, he turned to you and held it up, his eyes shining. I think this one is the best of them. I like a different one best. I can show it to you. You reached into the box to take out the one you preferred. Cove looked on with interest. The two of you were still sitting on the floor looking through your collection of beach findings when the doorbell finally rang. Cove jumped, startled by the sound. Since the person hadn't knocked, he figured it was probably Shiloh. He knew where to look for that. Lizzie's friend. You nodded, but that didn't seem to make Cove feel better. It was already obvious that Cove didn't hide his feelings well. You could tell what he was thinking right away. This isn't a good idea. I'm sorry, there's nowhere to go. He's at our only door, and if you go upstairs, he'll find you. Cove glanced around the room, his eyes wide, and finally paused with his gaze locked onto the back of the house. I can go out the window. He was already walking towards it. Scrambling to think of something to say, you stepped forward, then paused. Please don't get hurt. I'm worried. What if something happens? The distance from the first floor living room window wasn't far, but you could tell it made Cove nervous anyways. He touched the cast on his arm. The wind had clearly released from his sails. I don't want to break any more bones. I don't think anyone wants to. Yeah. But I don't want to see him. I don't know him. You encouraged him. Trust me, you'll be okay. Okay. Shiloh poked his head into the living room. It was impossible to know for sure if he'd heard what you'd been saying or not, but you guessed that he had.
Hi.
Hi, Claire. And hi, Cove? Cove shot you an uneasy glance.
Hi.
Hi. I'm Shiloh. It's nice to meet you. Yeah. You have a lot of freckles. Right. I do. What are you guys doing? We're looking at shelves.
Can I do it too?
Awesome. Can I do it too? His voice is so cute. Cove shrugged, then looked back at your box of beach findings. What about that one? The plan for the afternoon, at least as far as you were concerned, was to sit and look at the beach things some more. You weren't really in the mood to do much of anything else. You held out a recent find to Cove, a scallop shell that had washed up on shore. It's a pretty color, kind of like my cast. The beautiful, glittering pink did look a little bit like the wrap around his arm. Pink is a nice color. Okay.
Oh?
Is it your favorite? Not really. What is? Maybe green or blue? It might be yellow. Oh, those are all cool.
I guess.
I'm not sure how to deal with the suddenly more awkward silence. You look back at your shells. Poor Shiloh. Like usual, it didn't take long for Shiloh to get fidgety. Lizzie was his favorite. Without her around, Shiloh didn't seem to know what to do with himself. And Cove wasn't like your sister. He wasn't that much like you, either. Is Lizzie coming back? Don't know. Where'd she go? I think she's at the beach. Probably. Is she playing at her park? Cove's eyes lit up at the mention of the park, and he looked towards you. There's a park? Yep, but it's old. Can you show me? I want to go. He started getting up before you had even answered, and Shiloh jumped up beside him in excitement. Really? You do? You do too, right, Eclair? The park is fun. The park is pretty great.
Yeah.
It's right at the beach, so there's lots of fun stuff to do, and lots of sand. It has a jungle gym and a bunch of swings. That sounds like it could be cool. So, are we going to find Lizzie? I don't know, I never really wanted to see her. I just want to check the park out. Adrift without any direction, Shiloh finally turned to you. Okay. He perked up. Both boys wanted to go. It was only fair. After getting permission from your moms, the three of you were ready to head out. It was a short walk to the park. Lizzie had convinced your moms that it was so short she should always be allowed to walk there by herself. When you found her, she was hanging on the jungle gym, swinging back and forth. Hey, Lizzie! Her face lit up when she saw you, her big brown eyes going wide. Eclair! Shiloh! Hi! She dropped to the ground and landed with a soft thud in the sand. In a split second, Shiloh had abandoned you two and scrambled over to stand by her. You were used to being left out when it was just the three of you, but now Cove was here. You weren't sure if this was an improvement. So sad. Who's that? It's Cove. He's new.
Hi.
I remember. Hi, Cove. Welcome to my park. Nobody ever comes to play here, so this is where we get together. She gestured widely with her arms as if to present the area to the newcomer. While Lizzie continued talking, you took the chance to kick off your shoes and wiggle your toes through the warm sand. Nice, huh? In this neighborhood, I'm the one who comes up with the ideas. You are?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I am. Who else could handle the job? Lizzie is the oldest. By a lot. My mom said you're Eclair's age.
Yeah.
Thought so. I'm still the only one in this group with double digits. What about other kids? Other kids? There aren't any. We're the only kids here, and Shiloh is just visiting from another place. Not even tourists really bring their kids here. This is the land of ancients. Be careful that the oldies don't try to steal your youth.
Oh.
Lizzie, no! For a second, it looked like he might cry again. But something in his eyes shifted, and he looked back at Lizzie. What kind of old people? Like moms and dads or grandparents? Grandparents who don't have kids. They hate kids. Why? We haven't done anything. Only some of them don't like kids. You interjected quickly, hoping Lizzie wouldn't take things too far. Cove sniffled, his forehead creased with worry. Lizzie was staring Cove down, but Cove wasn't even looking at her anymore. He didn't seem to care that she was there. He went into his own head. Shiloh was the next one to speak, completely unaware of the situation. I met Lizzie and Eclair in school. You'll see tons of kids there once summer is over. I don't want to go to a new school. I don't want summer to end. Shiloh looked down to the dirt. He hasn't had much luck striking up conversations with Cove. I like summer vacation a lot too. All the building tension in the air suddenly vanished when Lizzie laughed. At Shiloh's discomfort, at how weird she thought Cove was, at something else entirely. You didn't really know, but she laughed, face scrunching up.
Okay.
Welcome to Sunset Bird Cove. Take a seat, put up your feet, and get used to it. Ugh, is right. For the rest of the summer, Cove was always there. You saw him more often than Shiloh, and on Sundays when she was in a bad mood or busy, you even saw him more than Lizzie. He became a staple of your everyday life, the way sun and lunch and the beach were. That first summer, you hadn't really been interested in him one way or another. He was just kind of a fact of life, someone you met with because he was there. Of course, that was only the start of things. Alright, so as you can see, there are 10 moments that you can select and go through. I will not be going through them because there's 10 for each step and there's 3 steps. So I went to a couple of friends and I had them pick out 5 moments that they would like to see me play through. And I'm taking the 5 most highest in order of the highest one. So the one that was voted the most was Run Away. So that's the moment we're going to be going to first. The runaway moment. That is the one. That is the one we're going to be going through first. After a couple hours at the playground by yourself, it had gotten firmly into afternoon. You were on the swing set with your feet buried in the sand when you spotted Lizzie in the distance. She was rushing over like something was on her tail, chasing her. You knew she would be coming, but was she that excited to get to the park? Instead of nabbing the swing beside yours, Lizzie stopped in front of you. She bent over, balanced her hands on her knees, and panted. Did you hear? Hear what? Lizzie bounced back up, her eyes blown wide. You only saw her this worked up when she found the new hiding place of Mom's sugar stash. It's about Cove. Cove? Lizzie rarely brought him up herself, and never with this much urgency. What was this about? You listened confused as Lizzie explained. It just came out when I saw lots of people gathered around in the middle of the street. They were talking kind of quietly, so I don't think I was supposed to hear, but that just means it was important. So I snuck up, and I heard everything. She paused dramatically. Clearly, she wanted you to say something. What did you hear? Seeing that she had your attention, Lizzie continued, Cove is missing. He left a piece of paper for Mr. Holden to tell him he was going away and would be gone for a long time, and no one's seen him since. Now they're searching the whole neighborhood. The grown-ups were even saying that if they don't find Cove soon, they'll call the police. The police? You had seen police officers around town now and then, but you had never talked to one before, much less dealt with them. It was an intimidating thought. Was Cove going to be arrested for running away? You watched as your sister began to pace in front of you. I know Mom said Cove was sad about moving here, but running away from home is crazy. This is so different, and I love it.
Jeez.
Where else is he gonna go anyway? I go to tons of places. I might be indifferent and shy, but I'm not, like, heartless. I want to find him. Lizzie scrunched her face up, thinking deeply for a moment. Then she nodded and planted her hands on her hips, determined. I'm gonna look too. You are? Mm-hmm. We can play at the park any day, and the more people there are looking, the quicker someone will find him. Maybe I'll be the one who does. I'm the best at hide and seek, after all. It seemed like Lizzie wanted to look not only because she was concerned about Cove, but also because it was the most interesting thing to happen this week. Wish me luck! Before you could say anything, she ran off in the opposite direction from where she came. You were left in the dust in a matter of moments. That was your sister for you. But Lizzie's appearance in this crisis faded to the back of your mind just as quickly. Cove. He told his dad he was leaving to go somewhere by himself. It was surprising news at first, but that sounded like something he'd do when you considered it again. Unfortunately, you had no idea where he could have gone. You thought hard. There were the hills behind your house. He'd gone there the first time you met, but someone would have checked there already. They wouldn't need the police for that. Cove must be far away or hiding somewhere, if the whole neighborhood was looking for him. You swung back and forth, your lips pursed in contemplation. If I were Cove, where would I go? Lizzie had said Cove was crazy for running away from home, but he never considered Sunset Bird his home, did he? His real home was somewhere else. There was only one place that came to mind that might be important enough for Cove to go off like this. It was a good idea, except how was he gonna get there? Could he take a bus? Was he gonna walk the whole way? He didn't know what direction he needed to take. But wait, there was only one way he could go. Going down the street just led to the beach, so that couldn't be right. Going either side would mean he'd get stuck by buildings and fences and big slopes, like the one behind your house. That left going up the street. You knew that road. It led into the main part of town and kept going all the way to the city limits. Cove didn't know the area well. You didn't think he'd want to go off that road onto some random other street, which meant if someone followed that path, they might find him somewhere along it. The grown-ups seemed to all be looking in the neighborhood, so... Ah, yes! Ah, yes! Ah, yes. Oh, this is... There is so much work put into this story, like all of the options. There is so many things that factor into it. Like, the way you feel about Cove can change some of the interactions you have. Like, if you're friendly with Cove, this is not how this goes down. It goes down completely different. Oh, this is wonderful. The story can be different each time. Like, it really can. Alright, Eclair is not reckless. She's shy. She's probably not going to go find Cove. On her own, she's probably going to go tell the adults. You had to tell them where to search. You rushed to where you had abandoned your flip-flops and slipped them on. They slapped against the sand as you left the playground. On your way home, you spotted Mom almost instantly. She must know about Cove and was looking to you because she was wearing a worried frown. Her expression cleared up when she saw you walking towards her. Claire, I'm glad you're here. Cove is... She cut herself off, sighing deeply. Why don't you head inside? I need to stay out for a bit longer. Something is going on right now, but we'll take care of it. Mom tried to usher you into the house, but you didn't budge from where you stood. Mom, I might know where Cove is.
What?
What? How did you even find out he's missing already? She shook her head before you could answer. You know what? That's not important right now. Where is it, Eclair? You told her your hunch. She listened intently. The main street. That's not good. I'll drive down there to make sure he doesn't get far. Mom muttered that more to herself than you, but you heard her all the same. Can I come with you? Is Cove gonna be okay? Mom turned back to you, her features softening. She leaned down and hugged you briefly.
Yes.
Don't worry, Eclair. He will be. You helped make sure of that. She sounded more confident than you felt. Just like that, some of your worry faded away. Mom guided you to the house with a hand on your shoulder. You both went in. Mommy appeared quickly. She must have been waiting nearby. There was a phone in her hand. It worried you, thinking about who she might have been talking to. Mom briefly explained what happened before she grabbed the car keys. Mommy saw her out. Soon after, you were herded into the kitchen. You sat at the table while Mommy microwaved leftovers, which you gobbled up. You hadn't even realized how hungry you were. The two of you settled into the living room after that. Mommy put a carton on the TV for you to watch. Mommy put a cartoon on the TV for you to watch while you waited. You snuggled up against her side as you watched the show, warm and safe. Your mind was still on Cove. Would Mom find him out there in town, or was he actually somewhere else? You didn't have to wait long to find out. Halfway through the episode, you heard the front door unlock. Then it swung open with a shout. We're here! I've got him! Lonnie! Come on in, Cove. You didn't stir from the couch at first, not sure what to do, but Mommy got up, so you followed her. Mom was putting the car keys away. Cove stood nearby with his head bowed. You squinted to get a better look at him. Cove looked exhausted. His eyes were rimmed red, nearly matching his glasses, and there were dried tear tracks stuck on his cheeks. And a backpack was slung over one of his shoulders. He really had planned on running away. Oh, thank goodness. You found him. Yes, he was way down Main Street, just like Eclair said. Cove shuffled his feet at that, but he remained silent. You could tell that he felt out of place. You weren't the only one who noticed his discomfort.
Okay.
You must be tired, Cove. You can sit down wherever you like. Mommy smiled warmly and motioned him to the living room. Cove looked up at her, then lumbered over. You walked close behind him, frowning. Cove was always pretty quiet, but this was a different kind of quiet. The living room wasn't far, or separated by a wall, so you heard your mom's talking softly. He wanted to go see his mother. Poor thing.
Well,
That explains it, at least. Still, I'm not sure it excuses it. It was so dangerous to go off into town like that. He's having a hard time right now. You can't expect a child to handle it maturely. True, it can't be helped. But that's enough of that. We should tell Cliff and the others that he's here before the panic gets out of hand. There could be riots.
Is that all right?
I'll call, then go to the front to tell everyone still out there. You keep an eye on the kids. Make sure they don't take any more trips today. Got it, hun. Cove just sat there on the couch, sitting his backpack down beside him. He stared at his hands. This is so weird. What is? Everyone is looking for me. They all know I tried to leave. I kinda want to run away and not come back this time, so I don't have to see them again. Please never run away again. Cove looked guilty for even suggesting that, despite it not being serious. I won't. Not for real. When it seemed silence would descend upon the two of you again, the front door opened. Your mom was back, with Mr. Holden close behind her. He made a beeline for the couch, his gaze trained on his son.
Cove?
Cove, goodness, are you all right? Strands of his hair had fallen out of his ponytail. His eyes were darkened, like he'd been crying too. Cove stared up at his dad, his own eyes wide behind the frames of his glasses. He really hadn't expected it to be such a big deal. I'm okay. Good, that's good. I'm so glad to hear that. He clasped a hand on his son's shoulder, attempting a smile, but the corners of his lips twitched and spasmed, as if they wanted to wilt into a frown instead. Cove seemed to have that effect on him. Mr. Holden turned to you, still grinning weakly, then looked at your moms. Thank you for your help, as always. He laughed pitifully.
I'm sorry.
And I'm very sorry for ruining your afternoon with this. I can't apologize enough.
It's okay.
It was no trouble. Cliff, really, it couldn't be helped. In a way, something was bound to happen sometime. We're just happy we could help and that Cove's safe and sound. Not for the first time that day, you recalled your original meeting with Cove. He had run away then too, only not as far as he had today. Cove must have had a similar thought because he mumbled an apology. Sorry, Dad. I won't leave anymore. Promise. Some life seemed to return to Mr. Holden thanks to his promise. This time around, his smile was more genuine.
I'm so glad.
That's a relief to hear. Next time you feel like running off, come to me first, okay? We can talk about it. I'm here for you. Cove nodded. His dad reached out and mussed his hair playfully. Although he made a face, Cove didn't try to dodge the hand as he usually did. Let's go home, bud. I'd bet you're as tired as I am. Mr. Holden took over carrying Cove's backpack, still clasping a free hand on his son's shoulder when he stood up from the couch. The five of you walked over to the front door so you could see them off. Mr. Holden thanked your moms profusely at least 3 more times before he walked out the door. Cove was made to follow. But he stopped and turned to you before stepping through the threshold.
Thanks.
Thanks, Eclair. I didn't do anything. Your mom said you were the one who told her where to get me. It was good that I went back. A teeny smile flittered across his lips, there and then gone. And with that, Cove left. Mommy closed the door behind them. You were left feeling overwhelmed. Your fatigue must have been obvious because your mom sent you off for a nap with no more discussion on what happened that day. Once your head hit the pillow, your eyes slipped closed on their own. After the nap, everything else was a blur. You were settled into bed for real later that night in what felt like just a couple of moments. You woke up much more at ease than you had felt when you were last conscious. It was almost like it was a dream, but it definitely wasn't. Your mom's faces, when you saw them, assured that. After breakfast, you were set down and your family went over yesterday's events in full. They were pleased that you came to them the moment you had an idea where Cove disappeared off to. As a reward, your moms promised to take you and Lizzie out for a treat later. It was more than welcome change from the worry you'd been dealing with. Mr. Holden talked to Cove about what happened too. You didn't know what was said exactly, but Mr. Holden forgave Cove immediately. He didn't do anything to punish Cove for running away. He blamed no one but himself for Cove's desire to leave home. You caught your moms discussing it once in hushed tones, frowning at each other. It was pretty serious. There was a word used you hadn't heard before, self-flagellation. But there wasn't anything they could do to change Mr. Holden's mind. Your neighbors stopped you and Cove often for the next week or so to express their concerns and disapproval at the event. Still, as they always did, days continued to pass. So did talk about Cove running away. Things eventually returned to normal, as they had to. Summer kept going, and you kept having experiences you shared with Cove. Oh, that turned out so different. That's what I love about this game. Things can be so different. I've played this game a lot already. I've played through it a lot already. And there's still so much to explore. There's so many different things that can happen depending on, I don't know, it's just really cool. It's just really cool. It's just really cool, guys. This is a really good game. So, alright, so the next one is Fireflies.
Alright!
Tonight we're going to catch fireflies. At this blunt declaration from your sister, you looked up from your macaroni and cheese dinner. Fireflies were a familiar sight over summer, coming out on warm nights to dance through the sky. Tonight was particularly balmy. You knew there were bound to be a ton of them around. Oh, are you? Oh, you are you? You started eating faster. A grin curved your lips as you started to eat a bit faster, excited for what was to come. It seemed like you were too excited, however, as you started to choke and cough on your food from shoveling it down so quickly. Mommy reached over to pat you on the back, firmly helping to dislodge the noodles and enable you to breathe again. You took a big gulp of water from your glass, giving your moms a sheepish look. Oops. That's a good idea, Lizzie. Can we, Miss Sweet Dish? Why are there two? I thought I only put one. Shiloh tapped his fork against the table excitedly, his face lighting up as he looked at Lizzie. It was unusual for Shiloh to still be here, like always. His mom had to bring him over really early in the morning before her job started. But normally she would have picked him up by now. She called before dinner to let your moms know she'd be late. You didn't hear why, probably more work things. You thought maybe getting to hang out with Shiloh for longer is what made Lizzie want to keep running around outside. Staying at home and watching TV was never an option for her with guests over. That's why you were pretty sure she'd get your moms to agree.
Wow.
It's already so dark out there. Lizzie gave Mom the best puppy dog eyes she could, slowly spooning mac and cheese into her mouth while you waited there for their response.
There.
Let them go. Nights like this don't happen every day. Your parents exchanged a look, then Mom eventually sighed and nodded back. Yes! Along with Lizzie's cheer, you threw your arms up in triumph, but waited until you'd finished chewing to say anything because you knew it was rude to talk with your mouth full. Fine. Just make sure you stay on the hill behind our house with all the poppies, okay? Duh, Mom, that's where most of them are. The idea had only just been planted in your head, but already you could just picture all the glowing lights spread out in front of you, like the fairies from the bedtime stories Mommy read sometimes. All too quickly, it became a race to see who could finish their food first. No choking at the dinner table now. That's right, if someone died, we'd have to cancel the Firefly trip after all. Mom said it like a joke, but you knew that they were both telling you kids to slow down. Shiloh did immediately. When you glanced at Lizzie, you saw her still eating faster than she should. Elizabeth!
Jeez.
No one is gonna die. Sheesh. A knock on the door interrupted Mom before she could no doubt scold your sister. I'll get it! Your big sister jumped out of her seat and ran over to the door, pulling it open without even looking out the window to see who it was. Huh? You shifted in your seat to try and get a glimpse of the unexpected guest.
Hi.
Good evening, Cove. Your mommy had already walked to the door by the time you managed to see past Shiloh's flappy hat. Why is Cove here? Is something wrong? He didn't give you any clear acknowledgement, his eyes firmly fixed on the ground in front of him. You shrugged, going back to shoveling a forkful of macaroni into your mouth. Then, for a few seconds, Cove said nothing. He only stood there and looked up at your mommy with a face almost like he was considering turning around and leaving. My dad told me to drop this off because I guess he borrowed it from you. Cove took a familiar screwdriver from out of his large side pocket. Eyes now dropped to the floor. We left ours back home when we moved. Great, thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here, why don't you come inside for a bit? Lizzie crossed her arms and lifted her chin. Cove shrugged and Mom stood from the table too. I'll give your dad a call to let him know you got here all right. Cove shuffled fully inside, eyes remaining on the ground. Mommy closed the door behind him.
Hi.
Hi, Cove. Shiloh gave Cove a friendly smile while waving by holding up his hand and opening and closing his fingers. Cove nodded in response. You could come outside with us if you want to. From the corner of your eye, you could see Lizzie glaring at you for mentioning the excursion to an outsider. Trying not to meet her gaze, you looked at Cove. Whatever Lizzie thought of him, he wasn't exactly a stranger anymore. We're gonna catch fireflies on the hill out back.
Okay.
I want to see them. I never caught one before. It's too bad he didn't have a chance before now. The fireflies weren't out when he first moved in, and there must not have been any where he used to live. We can't go until after dinner. After she pointed this out, Lizzie walked back to the table and took her seat. There wasn't much left on her plate. Since this was very true, you decided to finish up your own stuff as well. Cove stepped closer and eyed what was on the menu for your family's meal. Have you eaten yet? Yeah, my dad and I ate earlier. What did you have? Eggs. The clipped one-word answer seemed to discourage Shiloh from asking any more questions. His eyes slowly wandered back to the last scraps of food on his plate. Her phone call with Cove's dad must have ended because your mom came back into the room.
Okay.
Cove, your dad said you can stay for a little while if you'd like, but he's going to come get you before it gets too much later. Sure.
Fun.
Oh, fun. This will be so nice. As you polished off the meal, you hoped it would be too. The three of you all finished eating shortly after, and Lizzie led the way outside. Remember, don't stray too far. It's fine, Mom. I should get my family to voice over this. It'd be funny. Shiloh trailed so closely after Lizzie he was nearly stepping on her heels. Cove hesitated at the door. He smiled lightly at Cove, gesturing for him to follow. After a moment, he did.
Bye.
Bye, children. The two of you were a good 10 or 15 feet behind Lizzie and Shiloh by the time you walked outside. You pushed the door shut behind you and watched their figures get further and further away.
Hurry up!
You're so slow, Eclair. We don't have all night. You started to run when you heard Lizzie's voice calling you, but paused when you saw Cove still walking at a relaxed pace. Are you not gonna come?
No.
No. You weren't sure if that no meant he won't come or if it was no, he won't not come, but you were too eager to figure it out. But you were too eager to figure it out or walk as slow as Cove was. With a shrug, you ran to catch up with the others. When you arrived at the hill, Lizzie and Shiloh were standing on top of the hill. The fireflies were also already there. A grin nearly broke your face into light at the bright, winking lights bobbing around like buoys in the wave of a delicate moonlight. Where's Cove? He's coming. You pointed behind. Sure enough, after a second, Cove rounded the corner, still not in any sort of rush.
Wow. Wow.
Ah! Shiloh took a moment to come over and welcome the both of you to the hill. Hi guys, it's really great out, huh? See how many there are? Yeah. Firefly danced through the air, landing on Cove's sea green hair. You and Shiloh couldn't help but giggle. Covering your mouth with a hand, the sound escaped you, and Cove looked at you in confusion. What?
Oh,
Look, Lizzie has one. That's amazing. Shiloh ran to the highest point of the hill, making sure not to lose his hat or backpack along the way. You hummed as a group divided and conquered. Shifting your gaze to the dozens of other fireflies standing on the ground, the game was on. You were good at not getting cuts or scratches, so weren't too worried about that. She's a cautious kind of kid. Spotting one close by, you approached it with assassin-like stealth, crouching down to make yourself seem like less of a threat. Slowly dragging one foot in front of the other, you crept up towards it, arms outstretched. You closed your hands around the little glowing orb, careful not to crush it. The firefly landed on your palm, almost also, and you stared down at your prize in delight. Its teeny legs tickled your skin, and you giggled at the sensation. Cove kept up with his own target, but when he tried to grab it, his pink cast waved awkwardly through the air, foiling his efforts to clap his hands around the firefly. Oh, poor Cove. Cove watched it vanish into thin air with a dissatisfied expression on his face. You encouraged him to try again. You walked up beside him and gave him an encouraging smile. Cove didn't say anything, and you thought he must be upset. He walked further up the hill to continue his hunt, and you let your own firefly flutter back into the air. That was fine. You had your own plans. You decided to sit in the grass and watch. You quietly took a seat among the flowers. The others were jumping and dashing all about. You saw how many times they succeeded and failed, how Shiloh almost tripped a couple of times. It was a dramatic show, though around you it was calm. The lights of the stars and the fireflies surrounded you peacefully. It was a beautiful night. You laughed quietly to yourself as you watched the others, as Shiloh finally managed to catch a firefly without his small hands. What? Finally managed to catch a firefly between his small hands. His eyes lit up, and when he spread his fingers to take a peek at it, the bug escaped and flew off into the air. Oh! You watched as he pounced after it once more, but your eyes soon landed on Cove, who had failed to catch a firefly yet. Oh! You waited to see what happened. You watched as he crept up on an unsuspecting bug, so slowly that for a moment you wondered if he was still moving at all. Then he raised his hand toward one of the little bobbing balls of light, closing in on it ever so slowly.
no way!
Ah! The crafty little critter had escaped his clutches at the last moment, drifting too high up for Cove to reach. While Cove returned to hunting fireflies, you settled for laying back against the soft grass, watching the poppies swaying around you and the fireflies hovering against the vast sky.
Come on!
Eclair, Cove, get up here! We're gonna have a race! The shouting caught you off guard. It had been quite a while since you heard from Lizzie or Shiloh. You glanced over to see them both standing on top of the hill again, Lizzie beckoning to you with quick hand gestures. If she was like that, you knew there wasn't much room for disagreement. Up the incline you went. From the corner of your eye, you saw Cove was coming as well. He didn't care for Lizzie a lot, so you thought he might be intrigued just by the idea of a race. Hi!
Cove.
Hi, Cove. You can't roll down the hill. You could hurt your arm again. You'll be the referee for the rest of us. As Lizzie pointed this out, Cove froze in place. Oh, it was that kind of race. He frowned down at his cast. That was the second time it got in the way tonight. What? Yeah, you'll watch and see who gets to the bottom first. That's important. Got it?
I guess.
Cast was sturdy. If he was careful, he could have done it. Lizzie might have just been looking for a reason to make someone else the referee, but it was already decided. I'll stay with Cove.
Really?
Really? Why? You don't have to. It's okay. I want to watch. You moved beside him on top of the hill, even though Lizzie eyed you and made a face. That's not how races work. We only need one referee. Shrugging your shoulders, you refused to budge, and Lizzie let out a huff before throwing her hands in the air. Fine, I'll be the winner, whether you join or not. Lizzie moved to lay down, and Shiloh did the same. Cove stood slightly to the side to get a better vantage point, and you stood next to him. Countdown! Cove stood up a little straighter. It seemed like he was taking his newfound referee duties seriously. 3, 2, 1, go! Lizzie and Shiloh took off, letting gravity do the work and rolling at high speeds towards the bottom of the hill. You and Cove leaned forward to watch them go, eyes peeled for which of the two would reach the bottom first. They were both neck and neck, until about halfway down the hill, Lizzie started to veer off to the side, giving Shiloh a huge advantage. She obviously hadn't noticed the thing, and as soon as Shiloh reached the bottom of the hill, he jumped up excitedly and threw his hands in the air. I won! Almost immediately, he fell back into the grass, still dizzy from his roll down the hill. Lizzie stomped out of the bush she had ended up in, spluttering angrily and brushing leaves from the front of her dress. Not bad, you got lucky. Let's do it again and see who wins for real. Kids, it's time to come in! No! You snickered, feeling grateful you hadn't been a part of the mini debacle. You caught Cove's eyes and saw that he was doing the same. It had gotten late and was beginning to feel just a bit chilly as you made your way out of the hills, but the cold in the air hadn't dampened anyone's spirits. The four of you walked back home together, side by side down your neighborhood street, discussing the evening with each person trying to prove that they were the one who caught the most fireflies. You knew that whoever really did catch the most didn't matter much anyway. All that mattered was that you all had a good time, which, judging by the smiles on everyone's faces, you did. Oh, yes. Adorable. Alright. So, the one that was voted the highest in third place was Ghost. This is interesting. Well, let's see. This is going to be interesting with a shy character. The night was incredibly still. You really couldn't ignore how silent it was. It was almost eerie. You could even hear Lizzie snoring in the next room over. It was hard to believe how much of a blur today was. Summer sure did slip right past you. You flicked through the moments like pages in a scrapbook as you laid in bed. You thought a lot about what adventures you could have tomorrow until sleep started to catch up to you. Then you heard something scraping against the window. It wasn't that uncommon for the wind to push a tree branch against glass. Summer breezes were the worst sometimes. But the more you tried to ignore it, the louder it seemed. But the more you tried to ignore it, the louder it seemed to become. It was like something was trying to get your attention. You lifted your head off the pillow to get a better look. Nothing was there. Nothing you could see, at least. You never know how things are going to end up. You just went back to bed. It was only your imagination. You tried again to close your eyes and go to sleep. But the unknown scratching sounds didn't stop. It left your heart pounding. You went to talk to your moms about it. Your nerves were wound tight, ready to burst. Sleeping like this was not an option, and neither was waiting for whatever it was to make its next move. You took a deep breath, and then cast the covers aside and leapt out of bed. You were out of the room, down the stairs, and into the still brightly lit safety of the living room in a matter of moments.
Are you okay?
Eclair? What's wrong, sweetie? Your entrance had been swift, but it had not been silent. That was good. Your mom's hurried to your side while you were catching your breath. The TV show they were watching continued to play in the background. You told them you were scared. You reached for the closest parent and clung to her for dear life. There's a loud noise coming from the window. Aw, did it frighten you? Yeah. Mommy crouched down and held your hand, and Mom wrapped her arms around you. You felt the concern slip away. Nothing bad could happen when you were with your moms.
You alright with that?
Why don't the three of us go upstairs and check together? We'll see what's causing the racket. Good plan. Eclair, can you be brave and show us where the sound was coming from? We want to be extra specially sure that we've checked thoroughly. You nodded. Mom released you from the hug with a proud look. You led them back to your room, still clutching Mommy's hand. Stopping in the doorway, you pointed to the window. It came from there, but I couldn't see anything. I'll go investigate. She flicked the light on with a click. Your heart leapt in your chest as Mom approached the window. Kneeling on your bed, she made a show of inspecting the area from every angle. I don't see anything either. Something was there. I heard it. All right. You and Mom stay back there, and I'll keep looking. I have to go outside, but it'll be done in a jiffy. If it's the wind, we'll have to do our best to sleep through the sounds. If it's something else, it won't be there for much longer. She winked at you and punched one palm with the fist of her other hand. Wait. A roll of paper. Oh, this is adorable. You gave her a stuffed animal. Yep. You stepped into the room and rummaged in the drawers next to your bed. If Mom was going to leave the house, she shouldn't have to be by herself. They'll keep you company. Smiling, Mom accepted the teddy bear as her guardian. That's adorable. I'm sure they won't let anything happen to me. Mom then boldly left your room to put on an end to the mystery. You scurried back to Mommy, who brushed your hair reassuringly. After a little while, your racing heart began to return to its normal pace and your eyelids grew heavy.
It's okay.
You might be comfier back on the bed. I can keep watch. Okay. Let's get you all settled in, nice and safe. Mommy made a nest of pillows and cushions, which you eagerly snuggled into. Your head was elevated so you could see the window. At least you could when you could keep your eyes open. Mommy sat beside the bed, still stroking your hand. Mom and I can take care of this. You just worry about getting enough sleep for tomorrow. I know it'll be another big day. Before you could even think of doing otherwise, you drifted off to sleep. When you woke the next morning, it took a few moments to remember the events from the night before. Your moms weren't there right now. It worried you. You never saw Mom come back in, and now Mommy was gone too. What if something happened? You jumped out of bed and ran down the stairs, finding your parents already seated at the dining room table. Mommy with a giant cup of coffee in her hands, and Mom with her nose and some papers. You were immediately relieved at the familiar sight.
How are you?
Good morning, honey. Were you able to sleep well? Yes. I dreamt I was a penguin sliding across the snow on my belly. Oh. Mommy smiled at you fondly, holding back a laugh.
How are you?
No more strange occurrences to report? My investigation didn't turn up anything either. Must have been more scared of us than we were of it and ran off. I think you might be right, ma'am. Sit down and have some breakfast while the toast is still warm. What kind of topping would you like? Ooh. Honey. Delicious. Mommy slid the jar over to you and you dug in, grabbing a slice of toast and spreading the sweet honey over it. Ooh. Honey butter, honey toast. That sounds so good right now. After breakfast, you decided to take a walk to the playground to get some fresh air. As you headed towards the playground, taking off your shoes so the soft sand squished between your toes, you spotted a familiar head of green hair. Cove was sitting on one of the swings, but he wasn't swinging at all, and when you moved closer, you noticed that his eyes were closed. You poked him. I'm gonna poke it. You probed him gently on the arm with a finger, winkling your nose when he didn't respond. Trying again a little harder this time, he finally stirred and let out a soft groan. Then Cove yawned and pushed his glasses back up his nose, blinking sleepily against the bright sun. Were you asleep? I think so. I'm tired. I didn't sleep very well last night. There were these weird noises outside. You looked at him in shock, your heart beating faster in your chest and your palms began to sweat. Could Cove have heard the same thing as you? What kind of noises? Cove was quiet for a moment, his nose crinkled in thought. Like scratching, like clawing against the side of the house, trying to climb up it. I went outside to check. Really? That was brave. It made you feel a little sheepish knowing Cove had gone out to investigate on his own while you had your mom look, but that didn't change how amazed you were by it. He was taken aback by your assessment.
Thanks.
Thanks?
Thanks.
Did you find anything? Cove shrugged simply at the question, his mouth set in a grim line. Nothing. Then the sound stopped.
Nothing.
Then the sound stopped. That's a relief. You let out a breath, happy that Cove didn't have an encounter with anything sinister lurking in the streets. The thought of it really being nothing gave you comfort, and you knew you'd find it easier to sleep that night. After that, the rest of the afternoon went by pretty normally, with Cove and you spending a little more time at the park together. That evening, when it started to grow dark once more, you thought back on what Cove had told you, how he didn't find anything outside his house during the night. You held on to that memory, letting it comfort you and keep you brave when you went to bed, knowing that you had nothing to fear. Oh, I'm kind of sad, but barbecue was not high enough voted. The next one going is library. Every year, the Sunset Bird Memorial Library held a summer reading program. Your moms and Lizzie were big fans of it. Mom and Mommy because it encouraged reading, and Lizzie because she could win prizes. When it came to what you thought of having to read a bunch of books and then going to the library with a competitive Lizzie, I used to do like summer reading programs. I don't remember if I ever won prizes for them. I did do a lot of reading as a kid though, so I think Claire would love it too. Each time it'd been one of the highlights of your summer. Your mom still brought up the time when you'd shyly made her a thank you card for letting you participate. Aww, that's adorable. You and Lizzie went with Shiloh before, and this year you'd brought Cove too. His dad had been so over the moon about Cove being included that he'd driven all four of you. You had never been in Cove's dad's car before. It seemed a lot shinier than your mom's. After herding the group inside, Mr. Holden gave you all a wide wave with the arm that has a stingray on it. Have fun, kids! Stay inside of the librarians, you hear? I wish I could watch you in action, but your poor old dad has to finish up some work.
I got it.
Though I'm sure that won't get in the way. Heck, I'd probably hold you kids back. There is pointedly no reply from his son over what was likely meant as only a joke. Cove's dad seemed to deflate a bit. I feel so bad for Mr. Holden. He's trying so hard. I'll swing around again when this shindig ends. Yeah, you can go home now. You're a bit of a brat as a kid.
Aw.
You don't have to throw me out the door. Your sister, already in full competition mode, cut him off. For once, Cove looked grateful she was there. We have to go find a table, Mr. Holden. You can talk to Cove after when we win. Okay. Okay. See you in about an hour. Have fun. Did I say that already? My advanced age is really catching up to me now.
Bye.
Bye, Dad. Bye, son. Four of you watched him shuffle out of the library, glancing over his shoulder at Cove more than once. Bye, Mr. Holden. Thank you for bringing us. Thanks, Lizzie. I don't know what you're thanking me for. Are you copying Shiloh? Distracted Cove was already glancing around the gigantic library. I want to go explore. What? Wait, that's me. What? I said I want to go look around and see what's in here. But the quiz is starting soon. That's why we came. Why did the first sign of conflict? Shiloh's eyes darted between Lizzie and Cove. Then you can do it without me, right? You don't need a bunch of people. Didn't your dad say to stay with the librarians? You shouldn't go somewhere by yourself. Cove leveled an unimpressed stare at the both of them. Then his eyes met yours. I mean, that's what I did come for. You stayed next to Lizzie, her entire face lit up in a bright grin. You shot her a small smile in return, but Cove, meanwhile, was making a face you couldn't read.
Okay.
Poor Cove. Okay. Without another word, he turned and walked away on his own. And once Cove was gone, Lizzie's mind was immediately stuck on the quiz again.
All right.
Right, let's win this one.
All right.
I'll do my best. It took only a few minutes for your team to be set up with pencils and papers that had multiple choice questions to fill out. There were 10 normal ones and 2 bonus ones. You were glad everyone got their own paper. If groups had to share one, Lizzie would for sure write whatever she thought was best. From past experience, you knew it wasn't worth it to try arguing with her about different answer ideas. You'll just have to pick what you think is best and leave Lizzie and Shiloh, who always agrees with her anyway, to choose their own things. First question. It wants to know what fruit was giant and shared a book title with a boy named James. I should know this one, but you guys pick whatever you want. The starting answer you marked on the quiz was... Peach! James and the Giant Peach. I remember, I don't know if I ever read that book, but I remember watching a movie about it. Giant Peach. You gave Lizzie a teeny nod once you'd finished writing. Alright, what's question 2, Shiloh? Come on, let's keep going. This one asks, which member of the Bucket family is the protagonist who wins the trip to Willy Wonka's factory? Shiloh quietly repeated the big word to himself all in one go, maybe to make sure he got it right. Protagonist. That's the main character of the story.
Thank you.
Thanks, you're so smart, Lizzie. So, who is it? Charlie, Eclair, write Charlie. You looked back at the paper and wrote, Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. Without even giving your answer sheet a glance over, Lizzie scanned the question guide and looked at the next one. Kissin' Kate Barlow was famous for one type of makeup. It wants to know which one it is. Kissin' Kate Barlow? Nail polish, lipstick, blush. Blush? But isn't that not makeup? It's a normal thing. You can wear it on your face too. What did you say?
You dumbo.
Oh. You can wear it on your face too. It's powdery red stuff.
Oh?
I don't know this book. Who's gonna guess? You looked at the options and picked. I don't know. Who's Kissin' Kate? Is this an actual book? I have no idea. I'm gonna go with her lipstick. Alright, that's a cool name she's got. Kissin' Kate lipstick. I mean, Kissin' Kate lipstick. I could be wrong. I don't know. With that settled, Shiloh took it upon himself to check the next question. Oh, I don't like this one. Who was the mean green man who terrorized the green man that terrorized Whoville? It means he bullied them really badly and was terrible. You know everything. That was a little funny since Lizzie said she didn't know something just on the last question. Did he not hear that part? Shiloh could be kind of weird sometimes. Without even listening to her eager audience, Lizzie turned to you and pointed at one of the options.
Okay.
It was the Grinch. Pick that one. You put your pencil to the paper and marked the Grinch. You marked down the Grinch as the bully who picked on Whoville. By the time you'd finished writing, your sister was already on to the next one. Which of these stories was not written by Hans Christian Andersen? Oh. One of these is The Little Mermaid. That's an ocean book. Cove is gonna be sorry he didn't see the quiz. Yeah, I bet he wishes he didn't go off by himself. Since those two were focused on talking about Cove while he wasn't there, you decided to check for yourself what was written. The Little Mermaid, Cinderella, Thumbelina. Hans Christian Andersen. I don't know. Thumbelina was your choice. Okay, now what? It's question 6. We're so far. Yeah, we're making good time. The other groups are probably still on question 3. For this one, we just gotta answer, what's the name of the darling family sister who flies with Peter Pan in the first book? Joe sounds like JoJo. That's a good name. Wait, what? What's the name of the darling family sister who flies with Peter Pan in the first book? Joe sounds like JoJo. That's a good name. Shiloh, what? Your cat's name? Who would name their book character after your cat? I think it's Wendy.
All right.
Right, it's gotta be Wendy. I was only saying you went with Wendy. Lizzie wasn't, I didn't know Shiloh had a cat. Lizzie wasn't showing any signs of slowing down as she went right into the next one.
I know.
Cub, Teeny Bear, and Baby Bear. Which one was the one from Goldilocks in the Three Bears? That's easy. Lizzie confidently marked down a choice. This time she hadn't declared her thoughts out loud. Shiloh moved to write as well, stopping only briefly to check over Lizzie's shoulder, just in case. You're certain he wanted their quizzes to be exactly the same. Friends always match. That's what he liked to believe. You decided that the best sounding answer was, I think it was Baby Bear. Baby Bear made the most sense to you. Hey, this next one is only a question. They're all questions, Shiloh. I meant, it says, I'm late for a very important date. Who am I? Oh, the answers were all animals with colors. I remember. It's the Alice story with the white rabbit. I really,
Really?
Really what?
It's okay.
I just thought that was it. But we don't have to go with that one. It's okay. The animal who was always running late was the white rabbit. Lizzie watched you finish writing and bit her lip at the next question. The Narnia. Ooh, Narnia! Oh, there's books in here. I didn't know were in here. Did these get written? I thought I did this quiz before. Wait, did they change? I'm so confused. The Narnia series of books ended with one girl being, hey! Is this the real ending? I didn't get to the last book yet. I'm not looking at the list. I'm not looking. Write something down for both of us. You pulled the paper away from Lizzie's dramatic show of covering her face and turning away. Out of the girls who visited the book, the one left out of Narnia in the end was... Wait. Out of the girls who visited in the books, the one left out of Narnia in the end was... I think it's Polly Plummer. I think it's Polly Plummer. Poor Polly, but you checked her full name and glanced up at Lizzie again. Are you done?
Yep.
Here, I'll read the next one.
Thanks.
Shiloh lit up with delight at the word, then cleared his throat. The middle initial B in Child Detective Junie B. Jones' name stands for... Her older sister slumped forward with a sigh. There are so many different book questions, no one could have read them all. Sorry, Lizzie. You guessed that the B in Junie B. Jones was... It sounds familiar, but I don't think I've ever read those books. I think it's Beatrice? Junie Beatrice Jones. The other two put something down as well. This next one is a bonus question. We're almost done. Oh yeah, we can make up anything we miss on this one or the next one. It's not really a book question though. The sun being blocked out by the moons was a phenomenon called... They put some astronomy books in the bonus reading list. I haven't gotten to them either.
Right?
But I think it's a solar eclipse. It blocks out the sun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait. Yeah, solar eclipse. The sun being blocked out by the moon was a phenomenon called a solar eclipse, he decided. Your teammates had kept on trucking forward to read the final bonus question.
What?
This one is even less on our reading list. Huh? How? Fill in the remaining letters to complete the title of the book that's a classic of English children's literature. The Secret... Oh, I think I know. Game, guest, garden, I have no idea. Why are all of these last questions so bad? Shiloh glanced down at his lap and started twiddling his thumbs. You think he wanted to apologize again, but the words were left unsaid. From the list of G words, you went with garden. The secret garden had a nice ring to it. I'm finished! With all the questions answered, Lizzie beamed. Okay, we need to go hand these in. I can do it. Here. He snatched up Lizzie's, and even your own paper and hurried up to hand it over to the judge. Lizzie decided to get up from the table too. Hey, Eclair, thanks for doing this again. Aww.
It's not as much fun without you.
Thanks for doing this again. It's not as much fun without you. We have to do it every year. Aw, Lizzie. Lizzie grinned, and just in time to prevent you from saying anything else, Shiloh skipped back over. All done. It'll be a couple of minutes, sorry, but I asked them to come to us first. That's smart. Ko's dad should be here soon. Yeah, he doesn't like to be late.
Yeah.
He doesn't like to be late. As though he was a ghost, Cove suddenly appeared, standing behind Lizzie.
Hi.
Hi, Cove. I guess your dad isn't like the rabbit. When did you get there? When did you get here? He shrugged. A while ago. That one question about the classic book was The Secret Garden. Oh, yes. Oh. Lizzie huffed. Her eyes rolled to the side. They must not have picked that answer, and the revelation seemed to end the conversation. The four of you sat at your table and waited. Now that you were close to the scores, Lizzie's mood had gone right back to being just as intense as before. She wanted to win something at least. You could tell that Cove was kind of thankful he hadn't stuck around to compete. Finally, the librarian came up to the table with a basket of prizes. Group 6. You kids did so well. Here's a poster with some temporary tattoos and stickers as well. Thank you for participating. Lizzie snatched up the prizes and clutched them to her chest. Her smile was polite, but her eyes were all competitive fire.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to win first place next year. That's the spirit. I'll be looking forward to seeing you all then. Prizes delivered, the librarian wandered off to go let other groups know how they did, right as Cove's dad spotted you from between two bookshelves. Hey kids, how'd you do? We might have won first place if Cove had stayed, but he didn't, so we didn't.
Huh?
Huh? You left Cove? I wanted to go look around. But your friends... It's okay, Lizzie's really smart. And Eclair and Cove too. Wasn't this fun? Your sister looked down at her prizes, then flashed her best, friendliest fake smile at Mr. Holden.
Uh-huh.
It sure was. Friendliest fake smile. Oh my. Those stickers were probably going to end up all over the house.
That's...
Even so, next time you should... Cove? Cove? Cove's dad glanced around, slightly frantic, but Cove, just like always, had snuck off without thinking to say anything. He's leaving. Cove's trying to be the first one to the car. With a sudden burst of speed, Lizzie darted for the exit. Still in Victor-to-be mode, even for something like a race to ride in the front seat. There was nothing else for the three of you to do except head after them, pretending the librarians hadn't noticed all the commotion. Lizzie had claimed a window seat in the car. Judging by her expression, this win hadn't been sufficient to compensate for her earlier loss. Cove hadn't been happy that she'd shot past him at the last second and that he'd had to sit in the middle between you and Shiloh. Before silence settled over the car, Mr. Holden cleared his throat. Cove, you really should have stuck with the group. The quiz would have been fun. That was the plan when I dropped you off, and that's where your friends were. You didn't have to be by yourself. I wanted to, and I didn't leave the library. I'm glad for that much, but well, there's a lot of trouble you can get into on your own, even in a library. Just be careful next time. I worry about you, and I bet I'm not the only one who didn't want you to unexpectedly run off. Okay, son?
Okay.
Okay. So cute. That's my boy. Now enough gruff from your old dad. Sorry we didn't win, Lazy. You did really good still, and I had a great time. That's the spirit. Judging by how Lizzie pulled her arms closer to her chest, she didn't agree with that sentiment. She looked over her shoulder at you, her expression softening. Thanks for doing the quiz anyway. We'll win for sure next year. You nodded, making her face brighten. Yeah, even if it means we have to read everything. Maybe we should get started now. We'll go over the whole library. You can't read all that. Just watch us. I don't want to watch you read. You kids, no need to fight. It's good that you're setting your sights high, though. You were glad that you'd spent the day with Lizzie and Shiloh. Regardless of whether you won or lost, the summer wouldn't be the same without this tradition. Adorable. Well, the last one out of the pick of 5 is sandcastles. Cove wasn't able to do many things that summer. When you, him, and Shiloh set out on the shoreline one bright morning, you could tell he wanted to be in the water. But there was no way he'd be swimming anytime soon, not with his cast. The waves washed a single shell to shore, glittering and blue, another reminder of the places he couldn't go. From what you'd heard about Cove's old life so far in teeny pieces and fragments, you could tell that he'd do anything to be able to get the cast off. The possibilities of what he might get up to made you anxious. You thought about how his summer last year must have been totally different from this, with his old home and his mom and dad. But now he was here, with you and Shiloh and Lizzie and everyone else, and he couldn't even go in the sea. This town wasn't bad. It had all your favorite things in it, but sitting there on the same beach you'd grown up on, you could understand that not everybody else felt the same way about Sunset Bird as you did. You watched him from the corner of your eye quietly, and he finally said aloud what you had been pondering. I wish I could go in. The water? Yeah.
Oh,
I'm sorry. You're gonna be able to do it soon. Cove only sighed in response. Apparently soon wasn't soon enough. It's so pretty, the ocean. And huge. There could be anything out there, like mermaids. Yeah. Swimming might be fun if we could, but it's not like there's anything we can do about it. Obviously not interested in hearing much more of your input on the situation, Cove turned back to the water. But as he looked away, something about Shiloh's slow, careful movements caught his eye. Hey, are you building a sandcastle? Sort of. I was only playing around while you were talking. I'm listening. Maybe I could too. I've only made it big piles before. It's really nothing special. I'm sure you'll be good at it right away. Well, how do you do it then? Shiloh's cheeks lit up. You could tell he was a little bit uncomfortable to have Cove's expectant stare on him. I'll play too. Oh, I've lived on the beach. I'm sure I've made some. I love making sand stuff.
okay,
Okay. I like Shiloh's
Okay.
voice.
okay.
He's cute. He put his hands back to his seashells and sand and nodded. I don't do a lot. Here's how I like to get a house started. Shiloh, focusing more intently than you'd ever seen him, guided Cove through his process. You happily used your own method. It didn't take long for the three of you to each have a humble structure prepared. That's all, kind of. You can do anything now, like make it bigger, add some seashells, carve a pretty pattern. I bet you'll have a great idea.
Okay.
I'm gonna make it bigger. Mine is gonna be a real castle. Cool, this is gonna be a house. Looking at the base of your sandcastle, you decided to make... I think I always go for a mansion. I'm gonna go for a house. Just because it's different from the other two, I think I'm gonna go for a house. Looking at the base of your sandcastle, you decided to make a normal house. The better part of the next hour was spent focusing on your own work. The boys were the same. Even Shiloh didn't sneak as many peeks at everyone else as he usually did. Oh, look at the little sandcastle house. You finished shaping before either of them did, glancing up from what you built. It seems you got done so fast because they already searched around for extra decorations. Shiloh grabbed most of the really interesting stuff, and Gaio had a lot of the shells, but there were still options. The first thing you reached for was a green piece of sea glass. It was the best fit for your house, you decided. It was see-through and sparkly, so you tucked it away somewhere secure inside, barely poking out to make sure it didn't get lost. Pleased with your result, you finally took a proper look around that wasn't focused on the sand itself. Both Cove and Shiloh seemed super immersed still. You knew you could probably sneak a peek at either one's work. You checked out Shiloh's sand house. Shiloh was definitely the best one out of all three of you at building sandcastles. His was also the smallest, but there were so many glittering debris and carved sand shapes all over the entire building that his effort was obvious. Shiloh's little house even had a teeny garden by the front door and another one in back, all made out of pebbles and other bits and bobs. The silence was then broken. "What's on top of yours, Shiloh?" You peeked closer and discovered something shiny sticking out of Shiloh's sand chimney. "Oh, it's just a gum wrapper. It looks like smoke."
Neat.
"It's good. That's smart." "Yeah, I didn't think of that. You really know a lot about this." Shiloh smiled without a word. And that was that for the current topic. "Eclair, can I see what you did?" "Sure." "You've been surveying your work. You'd built a comfortable little house with a tree in the front yard. The tree had been hard to keep standing up by itself, but it turned out pretty well." Shiloh quickly decided to jump in the new conversation. "Hey, Eclair, what did you do?" "I made a house." "I built a house too. That's so neat." "No one else has a castle." "Yep, it's just you." Cove phrased that as though it was a point of pride. Shiloh's sing-songy tone gave the impression of something else. You weren't quite sure. Cove's confused face meant he must have also felt it was strange. There's nothing wrong with doing something different, you thought. Maybe Shiloh didn't feel the same way. If something is the only one of that thing, that makes it special. Yeah, for sandcastles and stuff. People too. My dad always says how everybody is their own man, a real individual. I don't think I'm very special.
Why?
Why not? Nobody else is you. Shiloh simply shook his head. I'm not different. A beat passed between the two. Cove then looked down at his own work again. Okay. He didn't seem to be bothered leaving the disagreement hanging there. Cove had other things on his mind. My dad tried to get me to make sandcastles the first time we came to this beach. I didn't want to. Cove trailed off again. There was another moment of silence. Shiloh shifted and opened his mouth to say something, but Cove spoke up before he could. You didn't think he noticed that Shiloh was going to talk. Hey, do you know what happened when your mom spit my dad, Eclair? You blinked, not expecting the question. You thought hard. I wasn't there. They didn't tell me. I just remember what happened when I met your dad. Mr. Holden had been a weird stranger then. Well, he was still kind of strange. No other parent acted like him, but you knew him better at this point. Now that you thought about it, it made a lot of sense that Cove's dad talked to him about people being unique. You were pulled from your thoughts when Cove continued. Oh well, I was there. I don't think my mom has met your dad. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she hasn't. Eclair's parents and my dad met the same day I met them. I'm gonna say what happened. Shiloh frowned to himself, ducking his head. His hat cast a shadow over his face. You could still tell he was upset at not being included in Cove's choice of topic. That was kind of boring for him, though giving people their own turn to say the things they wanted is important too. You stayed silent and let Cove finish his story. Shiloh could talk about stuff after Cove had a chance to share what he planned on. When we moved here, we didn't bring a lot of things with us, only some stuff that would fit in Dad's car. We didn't even get a moving truck. I sat in there while Dad brought it all inside. I didn't want to get out because I knew Dad would make me look around the new house. I really didn't want to do that. His lips twisted into a frown as he recalled that. Then I saw your moms. They were in a car too and stopped at your house. I guess they were coming back from somewhere or something. My dad noticed. He waved his hand, then went over to the front of your house, where he started talking to them. I don't know what they said. I couldn't hear it. But he couldn't see me anymore since he was looking the other way. So I opened the car door and left. I wanted to get away and went behind the houses. I found those hills there, the ones where we met for the first time. Cove nodded, then stared at you. He stood back. He didn't go on to say anything more. Is that it? Cove's brow wrinkled, like he didn't understand why you were surprised.
Huh?
That's all that happened. Oh. Thanks for telling me. You're welcome. What else do you say to that? Even if not much happened, you weren't going to complain about knowing the story. Shiloh's mouth twisted into a scowl of disbelief. He said something. Why'd you bring that up anyway? There was a slight shrug of Cove's shoulders. I was thinking about it because the sandcastle, it made me remember when I moved to here. Dad showed me the beach first before we went back to the car to unpack. He was really excited about it for some reason. Cole's brow furrowed a little more as he quietly raked his hands through the sand. I get it. You thought maybe Mr. Holden wasn't that excited about the beach and was instead hoping Cove might be. But the line of conversation had come to its end. Even Cove was done with it. Some other topic had popped into his head. Shiloh fidgeted uncomfortably in the sand, had made Cove aware of his presence again. They looked at each other, and you could only wonder what this might be about. Hey, Shiloh. Yeah? Why are you always turning so red, even when nothing is happening? Clearly startled, he jerked back. Neither you or Shiloh had expected that to be how he got included in the conversation again. I don't know, I guess. Okay, it's kind of weird. Shiloh's eyes were wide with embracement, and his lips twitched, and he was blushing even harder than before. Maybe it wasn't only this. Perhaps it was simply the last straw, but it was a big deal to Shiloh, a huge deal. He didn't just look sad, he seemed almost panicked. You weren't sure if he was about to cry or run away or what, but you soon got an answer. Why do you wear glasses? Most kids don't wear glasses, and nobody is named Cove.
Who asked you to come? Who asked you to come?
It was probably just your dad bugging Eclair's family some more, because you don't have anyone else who will ever play with you. Cove blinked. The tension on the beach was suddenly uncomfortable in a way you didn't know how to even mention. It didn't seem like the kind of thing he'd get upset about, though you hadn't ever known what kind of thing would bother Shiloh. I'm sorry. Me too, I was just wondering. You nervously messed with the sand. You picked up some sand and turned it over in your hands. There didn't seem to be much you could do to stop the fight, and you weren't sure what to do with yourself. Cove looked over at what you were doing and started building his own set of walls. Shiloh took a breath before kneeling back down to his own patch of sand. It seemed they both decided to try playing again. You were glad for that. You all went back to making more sand buildings, but the whole mood had changed. Shiloh's chewiness was clearly gone, and Cove looked as confused as ever about why the other boy had blown up. The air stayed uncomfortable the rest of the afternoon, right up to the moment that Shiloh's mom appeared at the beach to take him home. Cove and Shiloh had mostly followed your lead and barely said a word. His mom, standing behind him, even Shiloh's goodbye had been quiet. Friendly, cheerful, but noticeably quiet. But with Shiloh gone and the sun going down, you knew it was time for you and Cove to head to your own houses. You followed him as he made his way out of the sand. The walk home was quiet. You passed by familiar landmarks, shoes thumping against the sidewalk in near perfect unison. Cove was clearly caught up in thinking about something. You stayed silent. There was no way you could ask, not with that look on his face. But a minute or so later, he spoke up anyway. Hey, Eclair? What? Cove fell silent again for a few more seconds, then sighed. Why'd Shiloh act like that when I said he was all red a lot? I don't think Cove it didn't yet. There wasn't really much you had to say about Shiloh. You shrugged at Cove with no answer to give. There wasn't really much you had to say about Shiloh. He was Lizzie's friend. I guess I can get it, why he would do that. Sometimes I get really mad too. Despite seemingly coming to a conclusion, Cove's mood was still sour. What Shiloh said didn't make sense anyway. Parents always talk to other parents and set up stuff so their kids play together. My dad didn't do anything weird. You struggled not to make a face at that. His dad definitely did something weird to try and get you to spend time with Cove. But Cove didn't know that. Nobody's making me spend time with you. Cove's shoulders relaxed. You hadn't even noticed that he'd tensed up. Yeah, that's what I thought too. Anyway, I knew the whole time Shiloh shouldn't have been saying things like that. You nodded, but you didn't speak. You kept your eyes firmly on the ground. By now, the two of you were on the sidewalk near your houses. It was time to part ways. Bye, Cove. Your parents hadn't planned anything else for you, though you knew that you'd see him eventually. Cove nodded, already turning away. Bye, Eclair. You made your way to your house at a leisurely pace, going up the driveway to get to the front door before you went inside. You looked back. Cove was halfway to his house, his hands shoved in his pockets. You still felt a little unsure with what you were supposed to do about the deal Cove's dad had offered. You didn't want to say something bad or something you shouldn't. You might change your mind sometime. There was always tomorrow after all, but for now it was definitely something that you'd keep to yourself. With a final look, you went inside your house. Oh, and that is it. That is step 1. That is all of step 1. So next episode, I will be ending the summer and we'll be doing the 5 steps, or we'll be picking 5 moments for step 2. I can't wait.